Welcome to This Week in Perfect Team. I'm your host, DRC, and we are the show that provides instant community feedback on all new out-of-the-park Perfect Team content releases, and boy, did we get a big one tonight. Now, tonight is going to be a different show. It's a different show because we're doing this on Thanksgiving. It's a different show because we've got a ton more content to go through than we've ever had. But sadly, it's also a different show because I am flying solo tonight, guys. I do not have Kidneys by my side. And in more ways than you guys can imagine, Kidneys is a crutch that I use the entire show when we do this. He is the brains behind the analysis more often than not. He is the man with the model. And we're really going to miss him tonight. As Hero Driver 68 says, I've lost my kidneys. No, as anyone who paid attention to the interview episode that I had Kidneys on Reading Between the Lineups, my Tuesday show, he has had some recurring health issues for some time in his life now. And those issues flared up today. And as such, he's not able to join us tonight. He definitely wishes that he could be here, and he's been so nice as to send me some one-liners on some of the cards that we got with some of the feedback that he wants you guys to have. But we're going to fly solo tonight, and we're going to do the best that we can. And while I'm gabbing on here, you guys are loading up a hype train in the chat. We've got Little Green 53 subscribing with Prime. Thank you for the support there. MacJack's coming over the top with 5 gifted subs to Fabic, J-Spy, I'm Sith Azagoth, messed that one up, Cram Fighters, Cantherion, and then Chuck throwing out 5 gifts himself to Artinkle, Bogeyman, Brewcock, and Pump29, and those yesterdays. And then we've got some bits flying around too from Extreme UW, from MacJack. So thanks as always for the support. We've got a level 4 hype train going, and that's only possible with the wonderful support from you guys. So we have got an awesome show for you guys tonight, and let's talk about what that's going to be. So we're going to first start off with the card rundown. We got the 20, it says 24 here, but I think it was just 20, wasn't it? Maybe it was 24. But we got the community request cards. We've got the special edition Cornucopia that Chris threw at us. We have got the PTCS card that he threw right at the end. Is Chuck throwing around more gifts? Oh my God, Chuck. Chuck, you are too much sometimes. 5 more gifts going out. U53,000, Tiger's Mask, bottom of the 6th, Rue Jerry, and Midgets are cool. Thanks as always. Level 4 hype train complete. So we're going to do the card rundown. And then we're going to do a different version of OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. So in the past, it's always been me versus Kidneys. Well, we don't have Kidneys tonight. But what we do have is an opportunity to bring you guys into the game yourself. And I'll share more about that when we get there. But there will be an opportunity to win some perfect points. It's DRC versus the chat. We also have 30,000 perfect points that we're going to be giving away completely separate from OK Boomer, OK Zoomer, as we normally do after that segment. And then we're going to finish it off with Perfect Team Thanksgiving recipes. We know that for many of you, Thanksgiving is done now. All that's left are the leftovers. But what we're going to give you is everything you need to know to make your next Perfect Team Thanksgiving even better. So, ground rules out of the way. Let's jump in. And I'm going to try my best to not get too emotional tonight. I'm so touched by Chris and the team making such a big deal about This Week in Perfect Team's 10th episode. I, too, am amazed that we've made it this long. It's really been one heck of a run, and maybe we've got another 10 episodes in us. I don't know. I don't want to count any chickens before they hatch, but all the hubbub and all the cards and all of the perfect point sale going on and the packs, I mean, it's just really, it's all too much. All right, reminder, you guys have all seen this already. You know, on Thursdays we do this show. On Sundays we do the DLL World Series. T-Chuck beat me in 6 on the last one. And you know, on Tuesdays we do our Reading Between the Lineups show, and my next guest is going to be Jesse Roach, who not only is in the Perfect League right now as the Richmond Rhinos, but he's also a fantasy baseball writer, a dynasty fantasy baseball writer for Baseball Prospectus. So make sure you join us for that. All right, pleasantries out of the way. Time to talk about the cards. And we start with Alcides Escobar. And the first thing that I'm going to do, and really what I think tells part of the story here for Escobar, is this bat similarity score table. So what this table is, for anyone that's new, is these are the cards that are in the Perfect Team universe that are most similar to this 61 rated Alcides Escobar card. And so the way to read this is, let's start with Tony Womack. Tony Womack's overall ratings. You would start with them. You would give him 2. Give him 2 contact. Take away 6 gap. Give him 1 eye. Give him 4 avoid case, and then that would be this Alcides Escobar card. And as we look at the comps in this table, most of them are iron cards. And if you're a bronze card and your most similar cards are all irons, with the exception of this Ray Ordonez, who doesn't hit, and this Jim Gantner, who also doesn't hit, that's not a good thing. You had better be bringing some crazy beyond Ozzy Bronzy level defense to be part of the conversation if your only stock defensive position is shortstop. And this card is no Bronzy. So this is not going to be one that you need to be hunting out when it gets pulled tonight. I have no doubt with the thousands of packs that are going to be pulled that this will certainly be seen. And thanks for the subscription there, B-Phil. But you can pass on Alcides. Next, we've got Juan Samuel. So Juan Samuel, first thing you see here, and maybe the most important thing you see, is the defense. 13 rated stock defense at second base with terrible range. And as a second baseman, we all know from all the streams we've done together, we all know that you need range. You need lots of it. And we know within bronze, the cards that are played by most people are rangy middle infielders like Maury Rath, like the Fletchers, like Kaz Matsui, and Juan Samuel is not going to be that guy. And so this is a DH card. Now, can the bat carry that DH moniker and make it worth your while? And I would argue that the answer to that is likely no. The avoid Ks being in the low 30s, likely not going to be something that's all that sustainable unless he had a much higher contact rating here. And given that low avoid Ks, you would hope that you could get a bunch of walks out of it in exchange, but that I is super low as well. And my buddy Kidneys, his one-liner, his TLDR on this card is top heavy hitter with good speed for bronze, but lacks any sort of defense and has no avoid Ks to be playable at DH. So we are on the same page there. All right, next card. We've got Brian Schneider, a catcher card. I don't think that we've had too many catchers come into bronze meta and make noise in recent weeks. But here comes Brian Schneider. And the reason that I argue he might make some noise, or might have made some noise if not for the next card to come, is the defense. So Bob Boone is a right-handed batting catcher who has played pretty prevalently in the bronze level, and he's played because of his catcher defense. Now, his defense is 86 on the catcher ability, 82 on the catcher arm. So just very slightly better than Schneider. But Schneider's a left-handed hitter. So you could argue that maybe Schneider is someone you pair with your Bob Boone. You don't expect much hitting out of either one of them, but you pair them together and you've got a natural platoon that gives you very good defense. And all that makes a ton of sense, or maybe at least some sense, until I click right there. And we've got, and I might need some help with pronunciation as I often do on this show, Mike Lavalier. I mean, he played in 87. I should know this. He played in 87 in division with the Cubs. So I should absolutely already have this down. So shame on me for not. But here comes Mike. And Kidneys tells me that he was the PT20 GOAT of bronze catchers. And this card is going to be an incredible card as well. Lavalier. Wow, lots of it. And because of his PT20 dominance and because of how this card looks, Kidneys came over the top right away and said, that's my favorite. That's the card for me. And I'm curious what a power this low does to his BABIP model. Maybe he's hanging around. Maybe he'll have an opportunity to share his thoughts for that. But I find that very interesting. And then let's go back to defense. We were talking about Bob Boone's meta defense of 86-82 before. Well, now we see 86-84. So not only is he Bob Boone's equal, but he's better than Bob Boone. He's going to throw out a couple more runners. And he's going to do so hitting as well. I mean, this card is a must-own bronze card. We've got the PTCS tournament in a couple days, and if you haven't played your qualifier yet, you need to bump into one of these guys. You need to find your way to a Mike Lavalier. Kidney's saying that we don't have enough data on cards with this low a power to be able to model them accurately. So I'm very curious to collect my own data on this card. I'm sure that there will be some pulled tonight. I'm sure that many of them will hit the auction house. Others will start hitting bronze tournaments, and I can't wait to start gathering data on them. I mean, this contact profile here where you've got the 64 up top rated contact, 78 avoid. So he's going to be making a ton of contact, and the power being as low as it is, that contact is oftentimes going to be pretty quality. And in addition to that high quality contact, we've got an eye of 54, which in bronze is no slouch at all. So this card is one that any bronze player wants. I think this one's going to fetch a nice handsome amount on the auction house until it reaches that supply threshold where a billion of them have been pulled and those bronze tournament players have all gotten their share. One just sold for 5.5 thousand, says Cadus SL. And looking at the bat similarity scores, versus righty is really where we should pay the most attention. We see Bud Harrelson, we see Harold Reynolds, we see Richie Ashburn, Chuck Hiller, Marty Barrett. I wouldn't call any of these guys meta cards necessarily, but Lavalier is carrying a lot more contact than most of these guys. And I mean, two of these are silvers. Next, let's move on to Caesar Tovar. A really cool card. I'm so glad that someone requested this one. When I looked this one up on Baseball Reference, I think it came from an era, late 60s here, and he likely was a utility player back then. So, utility players often are not the most memorable or recognizable names. So whoever requested this card, kudos to you. I think it's a great card to have in the game. And I think it's very interesting, too, because he's a legitimate reverse splits hitter. So he's a right-handed batter that is bringing not only significantly better contact with 4 points here, but a ton better avoid K versus same side. Love the Cubs sharing that this was Fabtron's request. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I think this card is really interesting. He's going to be making a lot of contact. I expect that contact to be pretty high quality. Probably will hit for a decent average. He's not going to walk a ton, so you're not going to get a huge OBP boost there. But he's going to hit against both sides. And he's going to do so while also being able to steal some bases. We see 88, 85 in the speed and stealing. Definitely usable. And then look at all this stock defense. Look at it. You've got playable infield ratings of 50, 63, and 45. Now, no one's going to want to spend much time with him locked into any of those positions, with the sole exception of maybe third base. But having someone who can go out there when your Bronzy is tired and not absolutely embarrass himself at short, or go out there and maybe even take the short side platoon at second base, That's really interesting. And then combine that with meaningful outfield defense too. We see 71 rated center field. And so given that 71 is his highest rating there in center field, which is the most difficult outfield position, we can guesstimate that he's probably got a decent range number out there. And so with that decent range number, I'm not going to recommend you throw him in center over existing meta pieces, but if he ends up in left or right, he's probably going to play up from that 40 and 42 respective rating. So I love this card. This card is one that I was such a big fan of that I immediately tabbed it as my favorite. This is the type of card that hasn't really existed. We've seen everyone running Fletcher as the utility forever, and Fletcher's not anything for anyone to get excited about. This is a lot more exciting than Fletcher, a lot more versatile, and maybe even is going to end up having some starting appeal as well. So I love this one. Favorite card in the content set tonight. Next, we've got Rip Radcliffe. Silver. So we've left my competency of choice here. We've gone out of bronze and into silver. So I'm a little out over my skis here. But I'm gonna lean on you guys here in the chat, and I'm gonna lean on Kidneys for what he's shared with me via message. But we've got Rip Radcliffe here, and another card that's following that desirable profile of having good contact, good avoid, and then the lower power. So the anti-bird, the inverted bird, whatever you want to call it. And this card is bringing that too. It's an outfielder. It's not playing great defense anywhere. It's coming with stock left field with 56 range, which is certainly playable. If the bat's good enough, that's certainly playable. And Kidney says it's a card he wants to love because of its amazing versus right profile, but that's pretty divisive because of its weak defensive and subpar splits. So I'm not sure. We can't give you the definitive voice on whether or not you need to rush out and get this to fill your left field vacancy for your silver tournament team. But I certainly think it's interesting enough to gather some data on it, to try it out. All right, we move on. And we've got Adam Dunn. What kind of card is this, guys? What kind of card is this Adam Dunn? You all know the answer. It's a big bird. It's a huge bird. It's one of the bigger birds we've ever seen. Horrible contact. Even worse, avoid Ks. He's not going to make much contact, and the contact he makes is not going to do well when it doesn't leave the park. This is a huge bird profile here. Super bird. One of the biggest birds we've ever seen. Now, defensively, he's got a playable first base, which is driven mostly by his height. But offensively, he's just not going to hit. He's going to hit under 200, I would estimate. And that under 200 is going to come with some long ball. It's going to come with some walks. But I don't think it's going to come with enough walks to get him to an OBP that you're comfortable with and getting you to an overall OPS number, WOBA number that makes you want to play him. In Dishnet, you're right. This is Adam Dunn. Adam Dunn is one of the more fascinating studies to me for how his career went. Like, he was basically baseball's metronome for the longest period of time. I pulled some numbers. So this is from Baseball Reference here. But look how strangely consistent Adam Dunn was. I mean, you could count every single year on 40 dingers. He literally hit 40 dingers 4 consecutive seasons. OPS is all within the not only acceptable level, but downright elite in some seasons. And somehow, his first season that he landed in Chicago, everything fell apart. Look at that 2011 season. It's not like he was a 35-year-old falling off. He was a 30-year-old dude. And a dude playing a position that you wouldn't expect age to really warp him, and with a play style that you wouldn't expect it to. He was a guy who made his money on barreling up fastballs that he got and by walking when he didn't get them. It was one of the crazier transformations that we ever saw, and one of the worst free agent signings for that first year for the White Sox. Now, this card is a 2012. And as we see in 2012, he rebounded to be a whole lot more like Adam Dunn. He got his 40 dunks. Ended up with 41. OPS reached that 800 line, which is what you'd want out of a profile like this. Nothing like what he did in Washington or Cincinnati, but much more acceptable. But I've always found that so interesting, that, playing this perfect team sim here, my Ty Cobb has an outlier season, and I'm like, that's unrealistic. Ty Cobb would never do that over 162. And I think something like this is proof positive that anything can happen. And of course, I'm comparing real life to a baseball game, and real life has real people with real emotions and real problems and real health issues that they're incurring. So this is like apples to, I don't know, gasoline that I'm comparing to here. But I always find that interesting that stuff like this can happen. You can have a profile that is so consistent for 7 years through a player's prime, and then they just completely fall off the table. All right, next we've got Bill James. Silver pitcher. Split dominant here, so much better against his same side, the right side. He's got 10 more stuff, 9 more movement, 3 more control. Ground ball pitcher. The pitch value suggests that he would get a stuff boost, maybe not the biggest stuff boost. And then my feedback from Mr. Kidneys here, if I can pull that up. Top down pitcher, really understated. Won't see any play bad splits. That's probably Zoomer talk for you don't need to get too excited for this one. There's no real standout attribute on Bill James here. And I think you can't really deploy him as a starter because of those splits. So you'd have to put him in your pen. And I don't know the existing Silver Tournament meta, but I would guess that there might be a handful of arms that can do what that role does better than what James could offer. Next, we've got Brandon Duckworth. And this was an interesting card the moment it popped up on the stream for me, just because of how stuffy this card would get for a silver. Now, I completely understand, and I'm even going to harp on the fact that the movement's low, the control's low. But when we're in silver and we're talking 103 stock stuff before we go to the pen, with a 102 curveball that's going to drive that stuff significantly higher, like, are we talking about a 115 or 120 stuff card at silver? Is that unprecedented? And so I turned to my guiding compass, my guiding light, Mr. Kidneys, and he said, no control. Too little to even use out of the pen. And I know he's probably right there, but you know me. You guys know me and my penchant for freak cards, looking for cards that are atypical, that are different, and that really stress those models that Kidneys and people like Kidneys are developing. I love seeing a card with a Babbitt breaking attribute on the card, which is really going to stress that model and really put it to the test. Or seeing something like this, where a stuff ceiling within silver could be broken. I'd be curious if Wait Till Next Year knows what the highest stuff level of cards that actually get played within silver is, and seeing if this is above and beyond that point, and if Duckworth would have any chance of just striking out his problems. He's going to give up homers when he gives up contact, and he's going to give up walks, but can Duckworth with 120 stuff versus right, can he get out of those problems? And he says a resounding no. So Snaggle J, if you're still in the chat, I was trying to give you a little optimism there. I'll dangle a little carrot. And Wait Till Next Year said, not only did he say no, but he said, why not a 79? Next, we've got Mike Lowell, the card custom made for Ukraine. And this card here is interesting because it's reverse splits. So again, we have a right-hand batter, better via backup card rating versus right-hand pitchers on both the contact and the avoid side, as well as power. Really, the only attributes that are taking a knock here as you go to what should be the strong side for a right-hand batter is the eye and the gap power. So I think that this card, given how splitty the game is and how split factors are compounded when you add up what the batter has on their backup card versus what the pitcher has, I think you could probably expect pretty neutral observed statistics from Lowell. His stats versus right would probably be pretty similar to his stats versus left. He would have a much higher walk rate versus left, but that would be the big difference to me. But an interesting card here, nonetheless. And Kidneys says on this card, very interesting, could be a true reverse split hitter. Defense is kind of lull, and the splits aren't good, so I don't think he plays. But interesting card, and Kidneys loves Mike Lowell. Let's see what Wait Till Next Year says in the chat on this one. This one looks useful. Toss him in the mix with Millar, Freddie Sanchez, Roland, and other usable silver 3Bs. And I think the knock on Freddie is Freddie doesn't give you that much bat. Millar doesn't give you that much glove. So maybe Lowell is a nice cushy mid-zone that could potentially outperform both. So this card definitely worth giving a try. Next, we've got Franklin Gutierrez, a range-heavy center fielder. Very range-heavy here with 98. And so this begs the question of what is the current meta center fielder's range, and that would be, I believe, Juan Pierre. And I think Juan Pierre is right around that same range number. I think Juan Pierre, given that he's a left-handed batter, is going to be able to play a whole lot more frequently in favorable matchups than a card like Gutierrez here. But this is interesting, having a short side platoon option for center field. Oh, Lance Johnson, not Pierre. Sorry. I knew it was a Cubs center fielder that didn't stick around with the Cubs for very long, and I took a 50-50 shot and missed. Man, I remember from having Juan Pierre on the Cubs, he must have hit no less than 200 4-3 putouts. 200 ground balls to the second baseman, thrown out to first. Maybe that's even a low estimate. I swear every time he put the bat on the ball, it was a weak ground ball to the second baseman. Yeah, so Gutierrez here. I'd lean on someone like Wait Till Next year to tell you what to do with this card here. But Kidney says, couldn't hit the side of... Okay, I should have proofread this note before it came to me. But he calls it a noob trap because of the good defense and to avoid at all costs. Strong words from the Kidneys. Next, we've got our first gold card, and it is Early Win. I should have come up with a better pun or a better transition than Chris did to get to this point. I didn't, so I can't knock his poor attempt. And my notes here on Win is exactly that. So for you, Wait Till Next Year, I wrote down on my little pre-show notes here, why not a 79? But I also called out that he's a knuckler. For API, for anyone who missed our show on Tuesday, API said that he wanted to play catch with, and I think it was Necro, but just to play catch with a knuckleballer because he has an appreciation for knuckleballs. And Wynn's got one, and it's a very highly rated one, which is going to push up into the bullpen and likely get him above 100 on the stuff going both ways. But the control is really just not gold caliber control, and is not someone that I expect to be playing a ton at the gold levels because of it. Now, maybe if the movement was significantly better, maybe if we're talking about post-stuff boost, a 100 stuff, 80 to 85 movement, and then we're playing with the control, and so he's not going to get touched up much, and really that bugaboo is just the walks. Maybe that makes it more interesting, but it's just really hard at the gold tournament level to make a sub-50 control card work. Yeah, you're absolutely right, T-Rex. Playing catch with someone who can throw a good knuckle is a very good way to get a broken nose. It's a good way to get a bruised sternum. It's a good way to ding up your wrist. I had a buddy of mine who I shared a softball team with, and he threw a really good softball knuckle, and catching that thing was just hell. And every time I'd miss, I'd either have to turn around, put my tail between my legs, go run and get it, or it was going off some part of my body, and it was just horrible. I quickly learned to play catch with someone else. Next, we've got Chen-Ming Wong, and this card ticks off the freak show element for me with such low stuff. As you guys know, I love cards that push those bounds, as we just talked about with that other card a couple pages back. But super crazy low stuff, wildly high movement for a gold card versus right, and then kind of acceptable control. So the feedback that I've gotten from gold tournament experts say that this is just too volatile, too splitty to be able to play with. But I love the idea of being able to have a good defense with all of that movement, preventing the long ball with all of the contact he's going to give up in the bullpen here. I don't think he'd get much of a stuff boost to even push him up to 60 versus right. But it's definitely an interesting card. Kidney says this is another out of the park 20 GOAT. And the movement no longer rules the world here in PT21, which is really the downside of this card. So whereas control has proved to be the most important of the 3 core pitcher ratings in this game's version, last year it was movement. And so this card was really dominant, being so movement heavy. And he said it's probably unplayable, sadly. Also was a collection bottleneck, apparently. All right, next we've got Blake Snell. And just as we said a couple cards back about control profiles being too low to be playable, the same could likely be said here. Now, if there was a left-handed Brandon Duckworth in gold, it's probably Blake Snell. Because what he attempts to do here is to stuff his way past some really bad movement and some really bad control. I don't expect either of them to be successful in doing so, but we know that only having 3 pitches and having one of them rated 105 with his changeup there will give him a pretty significant stuff boost. So we're talking 110 plus at a minimum for this ground ball pitcher going to the pen. Kidney says no control, too little to even use out of the pen. So kind of that same story that we've said for Duckworth already as well. Next, we've got Ryan Dempster, or as they called him during his heyday here in Chicago on the Chicago Sports Radio, Ryan Gemster, for all of the quality starts that he would rack up for the Cubbies in 2008. Dempster here, it's got 5 pitches, and so everything we've been saying about getting good stuff boosts going to the pen is not true here for Dempster. He's not likely to get much of a stuff boost here. Well, maybe a small one, but definitely nothing too meaningful. And again, the control profile here, just not what you want in a gold tournament card, especially a high gold card if you're doing any sort of cap tourneys. So another card that I don't expect to play too much here, as Hero Driver 68 terms it, a Dempster fire. And Extreme UW accurately terms the radio station that was calling him Ryan Gemster, 670 the score. I believe it was Mike North as the radio host who gave him that moniker. Next, we've got Adam Jones, one of my favorite real-time or real-life players. Not necessarily for the statistics he put up, but just the type of guy he was. He always seemed like a high-character guy, always played a ton of games in a given season, kind of seemed like an old-school kind of guy who just went up there, tried to grip it and hit it, didn't worry too much about his walks, which obviously is not the best way to profit and not the best way to float your on base and your overall production numbers, but just seemed like an old school type ballpark that would go out there, play a premium defensive position, and at the end of the season, you're looking up and you're seeing that he's got 100 plus runs and a really productive stat line for you. But this card here, another bird profile. Another bird profile here. The dominant trait is power. And when the dominant trait is power, especially at a level such as gold, it's going to be more problems or more trouble than it's worth. And he also doesn't have any stock corner outfield defense. So that means if you want to play him in a tournament, you're going to have to put him in center or take the risk of him playing out of position with no defensive rating. And he's not a center fielder. He's definitely not a center fielder at gold with 87 range. So this card, I don't expect it to hit enough. I don't expect it to be able to play the defense that it needs to play to be able to impact that gold tourney meta. And so we move on. Ubaldo throws every pitch under the sun. What do we have there? 6 pitches. And so when we have tons of pitches like this, we get minimal stuff boosts. Minimal stuff boosts. None of the pitch values are over 80. And again, we've got the control problem. So a lot of gold cards tonight, a lot of silver cards tonight with control that's not much above, if above at all, that 50 mark. And when you're walking the world, bad things can happen, even when you're touting a very real and decent movement profile here, which Ubaldo has 89 movement versus right. So this is not a card that I expect to become part of the gold tourney staples. He also has a 1-hold runners. So as Trenton Christians is saying here, he's going to walk a ton of people and give up a ton of stolen bases. Next, we've got Robin Ventura. The man who decided to take on Nolan Ryan. And this card here, I think, is a slightly better card than some of the ones we've been talking about recently. It's definitely got a playable third base rating defensively. 96 overall rating based on 82 range and a very strong 89 arm for a diamond card. From a bat perspective here, we've got a platoon bat for sure. So it's definitely going to be way better versus right-hand pitching. And he's bringing 79 contact and 56 avoid, which isn't the best thing in the world. But he's going to staple onto that the 79i, which is going to earn him some free bases on balls. So our buddy Kidneys here says, alrighty then, good defense. This card will strike out 200 plus every season and leave you wishing you had played literally anything else. Please don't play him. Play Ace Ventura instead. So I think Kidneys is bringing the fire tonight. Everything that he was too nice to say went on the stream, made it onto this piece of paper. So, if this card is an 89, I think it's a different story, being able to play within the gold tournament meta. But as a diamond, playing against other diamond players, that 79 contact, 56 avoid, with the high power inhibiting his BABIP, likely too big of a hindrance to him. Next, we've got Roger Maris, the man who beat Mickey Mantle in the race to 61. And Roger Maris here comes with a couple of different positions of stock defense. He's got center, he's got right. The right's the only one that's going to be relevant to you because you wouldn't want to put 81 range out in center field in a diamond tournament. From a batting perspective, we've got some green to work with here. Another platoon bat. You only want to play him versus right. 90 contact, 62 avoid. He's also got the high power there. So this isn't necessarily a bird. His versus left is certainly a bird. His versus right, because of that 90 contact, I'm not sure that we'll classify it. What do you guys think? Do we call Maris a bird or do we let him slide? We'll let it slide, says Dishnet. And Kidneys here says that he didn't expect this to be a very playable diamond in that tournament meta. There are some high diamonds that are able to play that corner outfield position a little bit more competitively here and give you more with the bat or more with the glove. Next, we've got Tim Salmon, the first fish legend in Anaheim. And Tim Salmon's another platoon bat here, so much better versus left-hand pitching than he is versus right, although the right-hand pitching, the contact's not horrendous here with the 87. The avoid does sink down into problematic areas here. Defensively, he's only come in stock with right field, and the range is much less than you'd like to see. Yeah, Mike Trout definitely the superior fish, as Kidney shares in his notes to me beforehand. As you look at the bat similarity score table, we're still waiting on our first hit for PEL OPS, so none of the cards that we've seen to this point have a comp that has played at the highest level in the past 3 years, and we'll continue searching from here. At least with Salmon, you see most of his comps here are other diamonds. Only one gold poking up on that list. Next, we've got Pete Browning. And this is a card that I really like. This is a card that in April or May would have been a card that got people really excited about getting a hold of it. Because it's not only got stock defense in the infield and the outfield, it's not only a great base runner. Now, I haven't done the full research. Is this the best diamond base runner that's not Cool Papa Bell? I think it might be. And the problem with Cool Papa Bell is he doesn't hit. Pete Browning in a diamond meta will hit. Pete Browning is going to hit okay versus both sides. So this is a really interesting card. I think if this were April and we'd be seeing this, this would be a card that a lot of people would be after, and a card that would get a decent amount of run. As we look at the similarity scores, we see some cards that have played some pretty big roles in this game cycle. We see Hugh Duffy. So if you guys are bringing up Pop Lloyd as a good base runner, you guys are nuts. Pop Lloyd is a terrible base runner. Pop Lloyd gets caught as much as he makes it safely. Yeah, when I have Pop Lloyd, I turn down the stealing all the way. I don't want him ever attempting a stolen base because he's not going to make it. And Marksman points out that he's got 111 base running. So yeah, he can earn that extra base. He can stretch doubles into triples. He can score from first on a double. But from a base stealing perspective, and I should have been more clear, I think from a base stealing perspective, Browning here might be second to only Cool Papa Bell at the diamond level. But I see another couple of the names being dropped here, Stovey and Ewing. Yeah, but I think this card certainly is interesting. I'm not sure what the corner outfield or the third base meta looks like. I thought that Pop Lloyd was one of the meta options at third base. Pop Lloyd obviously going to give you a lot better defense here. From an offensive perspective, Browning would be much more deployable every day versus Pop, who has to be platooned. But an interesting debate there. And then if it's not in the infield, then maybe he can fit out in left field with that 60 rated defense, even though the range is certainly less than you would aspire for. And from Kidneys, we see him saying would have been a very good card at the start of Perfect Team. Not bad from a BABIP perspective. Contact a bit too low to play it at DH. And he wondered if he could play first base with his height. And so this might have been the card that Chris looked up on stream and found was that he was a 6-footer. And as a 6-footer, you wouldn't get great defense at first, but it wouldn't be horrible either. And that is Pete Browning. Definitely a cool card. One of my favorites so far in the content set. Last, we've got Toad Ramsey, another knuckler. And this knuckler is even better. Rated 114. Which is going to give him an absolutely delicious versus left-hand batting profile. That once you put him in the pen, which you would definitely put him in the pen because you don't want this versus right-hand batter control playing over the course of a full ball game. So once you do put him in the pen, get that big stuff boost, he's going to be rocking like a 115 or 120 stuff versus left-hand batting, and he's going to be incredible at home run suppression with that 94 movement, and all the price you have to pay for that is the control. And 80 in the diamond world is not nearly as horrible as 80 in the perfect world or in the main league world. So Toad Ramsey, I think, is absolutely a card that you can put within your bullpen at the diamond level. And Kidneys here says that Toad is here, but he worries about the low control splits. Probably a big pen stuff bump, but nothing too special about this understated card. Next, we've got Al Simmons from the Philadelphia A's here. And the first thing that I saw when I saw this card was something that someone typed into the chat. Someone said, this looks like a Medwick. this reminds me of Medwick. And so I went and I compared him to Medwick, and Medwick versus left carries a ton more Avoid K. So pretty similar card. We can actually see it right here. So his number 2 comp is that Medwick 98 versus left, which is going to be his best split. And you take Medwick, you pull 1 contact away, and you pull 16 Avoid K away, and you land on Al Simmons. And so we know that Medwick carried almost borderline DH level defense out to left field with him, whereas Simmons is going to give you 68 range, which isn't Gold Glove level. You know, this 89 overall left field rating is floated very heavily by his 105 error rating, which isn't the most important thing in the world. So Al Simmons is not a Gold Glover, but he is better than Medwick out there. I think if given the choice, I would go with Medwick. I think he'd be a more impactful bat at the diamond level for that short side platoon DH or short side platoon left fielder. As we compare his glove to those most like him, he's basically a Hugh Duffy with no range. So take Hugh Duffy and his ability to pretend to be a center fielder or do a good job in the corners and take 10 range away from him, and you land on Al Simmons. Next and last for the community request set is Tip O'Neill, a player that I frankly had never heard of before. So it's fun to learn of a new baseball player. And a card that's got a ton of contact. It's bringing 115 versus both sides here. Doesn't have the too high a power to hurt the BABIP, and has an Avoid K that's an acceptable 82 and 81. Compound that with the fact that he's going to be a very good base runner. He's going to be able to steal bases, with that stealing being 12 points higher than a good speed. And he's going to be able to take that extra base with the 100 rated base running. Defensively, 4 perfect cards, which really only belong in open tournaments or cap tournaments or main league play. The range is a bugaboo here. 58 range is not playable. Not playable at the very highest levels of Diamond and Perfect League, and probably doesn't belong anywhere on an open roster. But I do think he would hit some. I don't think he would hit enough to displace the current options for DH. So that's kind of where he falls below the cut line there. Kidney says a card that he wishes was a switch hitter. Overall has a lot going for it, but just not enough to justify the poor defense. If it had 10 more contact, it would be competing for the top DH spot. Jay Mallet brings up a good point that this would be a dead ball roster find for you here. Much smaller player pool there, and Tip O'Neill could very well fit right into that limited player pool and be a valuable card to you. So that is the community requests. We've got my favorite here, which was the bronze Cesar Tovar. We've got Kidney's favorite here, which was the Mike Lavalier, as I believe I've nailed that pronunciation. But overall, a very interesting set. I think it was strongest in the bronzes that were brought, and I'm very happy to have those coming in right as the PTCS is about to start. Can't wait to try to get my hands on those once we're done with the stream tonight, whether it's in the auction house or ripping a bunch of packs. But I do think that there were another couple other cards that were interesting. The Mike Lowell was pretty interesting. The Adam Dunn was fun to gawk at. The Shen-Ming Wong was a freaky type card, which I always enjoy getting a kick out of. Same thing with Duckworth, being so high stuff for a silver. And then from a diamond card, the Ramsey Super Stuff Lefty Knuckleballer. It's pretty cool. Tip O'Neill, dead ball player. Quanta Condor sharing his community feedback, saying probably nothing playable in the set. Diamond plus, except maybe the one guy in left field diamond cap. All right, we move on. And we move on to the mission cards here. Now, has anyone seen the missions and how are they structured? That's one thing that I know nothing about yet, and I would be curious to know how this mission set is constructed. Condor saying many diamonds, but not bottlenecked. Pretty tough. Yeah, I'll check it out afterwards. You don't need to send me screens, but I'll just be curious to check that out. I mean, obviously you're getting 5 very highly rated cards here, so I didn't expect anything too easy, but I didn't know just how hard it would be. All right, so first let's talk about Bill Dolan. So Bill Dolan is one of the cards that dominated early leagues. I remember being in a league, whether it was rookie or stone or what have you, where he won the MVP, and this is the existing Dolan card that's in the game, won the MVP and had just a wild season of power, base stealing, walking a ton, and this card improves upon that existing card that was in the game. But this one's a 100 rated card, and this one's got to enter a scene where the barrier to entry for an infielder is very high. And you had better be bringing either elite level defense and maybe more appropriately elite level infield range or a ton of bat. And Dolan does half the equation. Dolan is an improvement over Ernie Banks in the middle infield. He's got the 102 range, which is a couple points above above Banks, and 3 points above a lot of the other meta shortstops of yesteryear. He will train up all across the middle infield. Shortstop, second base, third base. Be a good glove for you. But from a bat perspective, he's just not going to hit enough. Contact being low 90s at this point is really unacceptable. I'm trying to think of the lowest contact card besides Ozzy that can still play right now. And Ozzy plays because of his otherworldly defense. If Ozzy had this defensive profile, he wouldn't get a plate appearance. Condor nominating Pop Lloyd VL. Marksman echoing it. Pop Lloyd can't hit a thing right now. Appling VL. Yeah, Younts is much closer to 100 here. So I think what you have here is you have someone who's going to walk some, but he's going to strike out a ton. And when he doesn't strike out, he's not going to get that great of contact. He's not going to place those hits out there, and he's going to be problematic for you. As we look at the bat similarity score, you see people most like him are not being played at the highest level right now. The one hit that we have here is Mike Trout, face of the franchise, who's only putting up a 700 OPS within the perfect league. And the way you get to Mike Trout is you take five contact away from him, and take 1K away as well. So I don't know that this Dolan has a place. Next, we've got Richie Ashburn, a diamond card, and I think that might just be the most relevant thing of the analysis of this card. He's a diamond card and not a perfect card, which means he gets into that diamond tournament discussion. He's a center fielder, so I need to do a range check on whoever the present day diamond range king is to see if 98 can play with them. But this card's going to hit right-hand pitching very well. 102 contact with 90 avoid, and a very low power, which is going to result in a very good BABIP, and then his eye is strong. So we don't have a ton of cards in the game that look like this. That is basically like the archer's middle finger here. It's like the bird got cut off and everything else remains. The fully inverted bird for Richie Ashburn VR, and I think it's going to play well. And in addition to being able to give you the defense out there in center, it's a trivial sharing that Blair is one of the options in Diamond with 109 range. But in addition to giving you the defense that he can in center and giving you this bat, which I think is going to produce in the Diamond level, he's also a good base runner. The speed is a little lower than you'd expect from a big-time base runner, but I think he would be pretty effective when he does opt to steal bases, and he's going to be a plus base BSR-type guy as well. So his comps in the perfect league aren't hitting, but this is not a card that we're targeting to use in our main leagues. This would be a diamond cap tourney card. This would be a diamond open tourney card. And Quanta Condor bought the first one at $75K. All right. T-Chuck targeting this card for main league. T-Chuck with some hot takes on what this Ashburn card might be able to do. We'll have to let the data play out. Next, we've got Steve Carlton. And when I first saw this card, I saw a card that was going to once and for all just be straight up better than a card like Eddie Plank. You know, we still see a lot of Planks in bullpens. We still see a lot of Randy Johnsons. And if this Steve Carlton card can be redeemed by enough people, then we're going to stop seeing those cards. Because this is just going to be a better mousetrap. You're starting with stock stuff of 159 versus left. Movement of 93 and control of 95. As we compare that to Plank, Plank starts with stock stuff of 126, which is wildly different here. That's 33 less. And he's got the same 93 movement and 98 control. So in the most important category, he is slightly better. But I think that when this gets to the pen, with the 120 slider and 101 curveball driving a stuff boost here, I think you're going to end up in a better spot than Plank in the pen. And I think the VR control, which I don't have for Plank, I think it's similar to this 84 number. Carlton goes to 166 in the pen overall. So that's an 18 stuff boost in the pen. And so if we put 18 on top of here, you know, that might be a new high watermark for a left-hand pitcher. Who is a left-hand pitcher in this game that can touch being at 177? 178 VL. Tech 15's got it in the chat. So I think this card's going to be very, very good versus left-handed batters out of the pen. And I think it won't be a train wreck versus right. It'll be kind of like a Bob Feller going to his offhand. A little bit better than a Bob Feller going to his offhand. As we look at the similarity scores and we see what pitchers like him are doing today, we see some fours. You know, his number one comp versus, let's see if we can find a lefty in here. There, Noodles Hahn. So he's Noodles Hahn versus left plus 25 stuff and plus 3 control. Noodles Hahn is a very highly sought after card, and this is a lefty who is just straight up better than Noodles versus left. 25 on the stuff and 3 on the control. So this is a card that I think is very useful, especially in the bullpen. I would not recommend running 84 control out versus a lineup of mostly right-hand batters. I think he would not fare well. I think you would have a FIP well above 4.5 versus right-hand batters. Next, we've got Ted Simmons. Ted Simmons is a catcher card here. And catcher cards are tough because catcher cards have to break into a very established and very competitive meta. So if you're a left-handed catcher, like Ted Simmons is here, you're going to need to knock off Joe Mauer in the offensive-oriented catcher position, or you're going to need to bring a ton of defense to the table and create an interesting dilemma for people that want to prioritize defense. And Simmons, for me, just doesn't do either one. I don't think he'll hit better than Joe Mauer with his 93 contact and 95 avoid Ks on his strong side versus right-hand pitching. And then defensively, this is not a difference-making set of catcher attributes. Oh, Simmons is a switch hitter, so that's good to know. It doesn't help the fact that his versus left profile is not going to be all that competitive, especially not at the higher leagues. As we look at his bat similarities, the people that look like him don't hit in perfect league right now. You see Griffey at 6'11", Campanella 6'41", Robin Yount 6'54". So not a card that I think is going to inspire someone to move away from their existing catcher platoon situation, whether someone is rocking a defensive-oriented Pudge and Campanella or a true natural platoon of like a Campanella and Mauer. Hey, thanks for the sub, NYD. Next, we've got Frank Robinson. Now, I really thought there was a good chance that we were going to get Frank Robinson as our face of the franchise for the Orioles, because I was expecting a mega Ripken as one of the toppers. Now, maybe that was a fool's errand, because for him to be a topper, he would have needed to usurp any Red Sox or Yankees as part of the AL East. So maybe that was a fool's errand in terms of thinking that way. But we never got the Frank Robinson as part of the face of the franchise, but we do have this one now. And just like Frank Robinson in real life, this is a card that plays both infield and outfield. It's giving you a decent 74 rating at first base. Defensively in the outfield, an uninspiring 71 range. So not one that you're going to be too excited to have out there in the outfield, especially with the established meta and range expectancies that we have. We're getting Ty Cobb's 82 out there is kind of taboo. So 71 is kind of off the table. So then what you really need to do is ask yourself, how much is this card going to hit? Will this card hit enough to inspire me to throw Cobb in the field, bump someone else off the roster, and get Frank Robinson out there versus left-hand pitching? And I think the answer is likely to be no. As Kidney says, can't play outfield, can't compete with the other elite first baseman, and not competitive enough to dent a very competitive meta. Not a bad card by any means. A card that would have been played a ton at earlier parts of this game cycle. But at this point, given that we've got a very locked-in set of players within the outfield and perfect team, where most teams are rocking some chili of Tony Gwynn, Ty Cobb, your Mays and Griffeys are roaming your center fields, Hank Aaron, Ricky Henderson. The value prop's not there to bump one of them off the team and load in Frank Robinson, even versus left. And Tech's got the infield ratings here. It looks like 54s across the board with 41 error rating with a height of 6'1". So that is the new missions, the Achievement Unlocked set number 1. I would agree with Joe A saying that he doesn't see a ton of disruption at the high-level Diamond or Perfect League. I would agree. I think that what you have here is a very usable bullpen arm in Steve Carlton. I think that card's going to be a difference maker. I think it's going to be better than Plank, for sure. I think it's going to be maybe more comparable to a David Price. And then I think you've got Richie Ashburn, who can be very impactful within the Diamond meta. But I think Dahlin, Robinson, and Simmons all probably fail to reach the threshold of impact at the highest level at this stage in the game cycle. However, months ago, all of those statements would likely be different. All right, last and certainly not least, we have got our PTCS champion card, Sandy Koufax. And when I saw it was Sandy, the first thing I wanted to do was check movement, because Sandy's movement on his current 100 card, before this PTCS champion card came out, was really the issue with him, the fly in the ointment. He was a starter with a ton of stuff, acceptable control, but he could just really get in trouble with the long ball. And this Sandy improves upon that. I want to say his current 100 rated card is 72 movement versus right, whereas this one is 78. But 78 movement is really tough to stomach through a lineup of face of the franchise bats. So what is Hank Aaron going to do to this card? What is Rogers Hornsby going to do to this card? What is Willie Mays going to do to this card? Like, he's going to strike out a ton. He's going to have a very competitive strikeout rate, one of the best in the game. He's a starter that's bringing 163 stuff to his offside. So the strikeouts will be there, but when the contact happens, bad things can go with it. And in addition to the movement problems, the 88 control, while not an eyesore, is not an elite asset either. So another card that has incredible pitch values here, only 4 pitches. So will get a significant stuff boost going to the pen. And as much as I hate to say it, I think that the optimal deployment of a Sandy Koufax in a world where it's really difficult for a left-handed pitcher to be thrown out there and face 7 right-handed batters and not get murdered, I don't know that Sandy Koufax will be that really the second exception to that rule, with Warren Spahn really being the only one in today's game. As we look at our similarity scores, we do see some Greenfield here. We see that he compares, interestingly, to this David Price. So David Price, which has, I believe, the best or second best FIP in the Perfect League the last 3 years versus left. He's basically David Price with a ton more stuff, giving up control. Now, we know that that's not a trade we want to make. If we're giving up control, we want a lot more stuff in return. And giving up 7 and getting 12 is not enough. So I'm going to forecast that Koufax's PEL FIP is going to be higher than Price's 313. But if we look at Randy Johnson here, who Randy Johnson had been logging some pretty impressive PEL FIPs for many years on end, finally having the game catch up to him. He's Randy Johnson, who's going to be 14 more stuff, same exact movement, and 9 more control. And so definitely going to have a better than 4 FIP versus left. Now versus right, we don't have a hit here aside from his current 100 card. And he's basically his current 100 card. And I'd say we don't have a hit. We don't have a hit of a lefty. His current 100 card, it gets 20 stuff and then 2 movement. So he's definitely going to be better than this 493 FIP. But I'm not thinking it's going to be worlds better. So a couple questions in the chat. Tucker824 asking if Glavine is that other lefty. And I would say in the right circumstances, he can be your poor man's version of Spahn. But you really need to be sheltering him. You know, you can't throw him out with the same reckless abandon that you can with Spahn. I'd give consideration to lefty cheesing your park. I'd give consideration to lowering the BABIP of your park in general. And then also avoiding parks that can be problematic for him, avoiding those righty cheese parks. All right, so that's the content set, guys. What did you guys think about the cards that we got tonight? We got a ton of them. This is the longest that we've ever gone to go through them, even though it was a solo man show. Lipitor Kid asking, can Carlton play in the bullpen in a righty cheese park in Diamond League? Can he play in a nerfed park in Perfect League? I think that Carlton can play in any bullpen in any park. So I'm not too concerned about park factors there. Obviously, any lefty facing a bunch of righties in a righty cheese park is not a story that ends very happily. But given that he's going to be in the bullpen, he'll likely still get a decent split between lefties and righties. And if that righty cheese park is nerfing out the lefties, he'll probably dominate the lefties a little bit more than his global average and then struggle a little bit more versus the righties. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. He can definitely play in a nerf park. I mean, the Carlton card can play. The Carlton card should take the spot of the Randy Johnson or Eddie Plank in your pen. I think David Price is likely still to be better than it, but it can play for sure. Walnut says Bill Dolan for the win. like the variety. And that'd be the feedback that I give to Chris. Like, I love all the bronze cards we got. I'm absolutely stoked about all the bronze cards that we got tonight. I think those are perfectly timed and introduce a fun element to the PTCS. No one's going to have enough time to gather data. This is really a win for the modelers. The bronze tourney modelers. All 5 of you out there will have a leg up as we head into the tournament. Yep, Trenton Christian saying Lavalier might be the biggest impact, and I think he's right. That card is likely on the precipice of becoming a must-own card. An own this card or else you're behind type card. So I need to go win one of those. If one of you guys pulls it, let me know. I'll buy it from you. All right, guys, it is time for a 7th inning stretch, and I know that I put you through over an hour of card review already, so it's time to have some fun. It's time for some audience engagement for our 7th inning stretch, which is OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. And we are going to be playing it different tonight. We are going to be playing it because this is normally a game show that pits me versus Kidneys. And Kidneys isn't here right now. So it's going to be me versus you guys. And this is a variant of Win Ben Stein's Money here. I'm going to pop open 10 product slogans from the 90s. The slogan will be the first thing that you guys see. And I'll apologize in advance to anyone who's got a super high delay and therefore has no chance of winning any of these. But I'm going to pop open the slogan, and the first person who can tell me what product that is for will win 5,000 perfect points. And you can only win once. So if you get the first one right, go ahead and sit out 2 through 10 so that other people can have an opportunity to win. And after you have one, message me on Discord, DM me your Out of the Park username with the appropriate capitalization. And I just said capitalization like a Canadian because I wanted to mimic Chris tonight. All right, let's get started. I think on the other side of this click, the first slogan will be there. So fastest finger, whoever gets it first in the chat, wins 5,000 perfect points. We're going to do this for 10 questions. Double your pleasure, double your fun. What product had that as their slogan in the 90s? Oh, man. Fastest finger award goes to Emerald Blade 81. DM me, Emerald Blade. We'll get you those 5,000 perfect points. Jimmy Springs with the Big League Chew. Good try. Fabic, sorry, your series delayed. And these were the Double Mint Twins in the 90s. All right, here we go. Question number 2. Fastest finger ready. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back ribs. Oh, man. Pidge right out of the gate. I should disqualify Pidge because he picked up 100,000 points on the mainstream. But he's got the first one here. So, Pidge, DM me. And then we'll get you taken care of. Tom Budo Man asking if I have any UK-based questions. I would doubt it. I did all of these from memory. So I'm doubtful that I know any UK 90s slogans. But we'll see. All right, number 3. Number 3 90s slogan is the best part of waking up. Got to finish the saying. There we go. D. Wald. D. Wald is our first winner. Folgers in your cup. I am very impressed at how quick you guys are. I feel like some of you are putting in the answers here before I even finish. All right, make sure you DM me on the Discord. Here we go to number 4. Mommy, wow, I'm a big kid now. Who's got it? Who remembers it? Oh, man, Gucci necklace. Gucci necklace, the first one in there. He said Huggies, which is correct. It's Huggies pull-ups. He didn't say pull-ups, though. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. So Gucci necklace wins the number 4. Congratulations to you. All right, number 5 slogan from the 90s. Bet you can't eat just one. Who's got it? All right, we see a lot of Lay's and a lot of Pringles. The correct answer is Lay's. And the first one I see has FCF Pal. So congrats to you. 5,000 perfect points coming your way. DM me on the Discord. And we will move to what I believe is number 6. There's the Lay's logo. Bet you can't eat just one. I wonder how many kidneys would have got. What's the over-under for how many kidneys would have got? I'm going to say 3. 6, 4.5, 7, 2, 1.5, 1. All over the board. I'll have to give him the quiz privately later. All right, here we go. Next one. The Fresh Maker. What was the Fresh Maker? Mentos. Zen Lunatic 16. Gets it in there with the misspelling at the end of it. We'll count it anyway. Bailey out of the park. Never heard of Mentos. Wait till next year's drowning in 4th or 2nd place finishes. Mentos was the Fresh Maker. All right, next 90s slogan. I believe we're on number 7. Blank. It's what's for dinner. Beef. KK Fitz. KK Fitz wins it, and guess who got second? Wait till next year again. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Oh, boy. Yeah, if your delay is real bad, maybe click the refresh on your browser. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. I'm not sure. Yeah, Lobat, these are kindergarten level questions for people who lived in the 90s. Kidneys is a Zoomer, though. That's who these were all designed for. All right, next one. Here we go. Well, there's the logo for beef. It's what's for dinner. Next one. Here we go. It is be all that you can be. Hero Driver 68 gets it first with Army. Congratulations to Hero Driver 68. DM me on the Discord. But this was the Army. We all remember this commercial. All right, next one. We're getting close to the end here. I don't want to grow up. I'm a blunt, blunt, blunt kid. Walnut. Walnut off the top rope. No, Dishnet beat him. Dishnet beat him in a photo finish. Toys R Us. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. Well done to Mr. Dishnet. 5,000 perfect points coming your way. And this next one might be my last one. Melts in your mouth, not in your hands. What melts in your mouth and not in your hands? That's R. Tinkle, 1218 with M&M's. DM me on the Discord. That might have been my last one. I'm not sure. Let's see. This could be one more. Nope, that was it. So that's our community injected OK Zoomer session. I will show the picture that Kidney sent me to put into his deck here, and we can try to break it down together. Oh boy, look what we have here. We've got a Thanksgiving feast with Mr. Jardine at the head of the table. Then a completely disinterested Kidneys drinking in the bottom right corner. And then me guzzling out of my Chicago Bears plastic cup in the other corner. The family Thanksgiving. Once Kidneys' adoption papers are complete, and we invite Jardine over to let him know that Thanksgiving is indeed a holiday, and one celebrated by a majority of his customer base. No masks, says Lobat. But I'm sure that there's probably like an actual meme behind this. I don't know what it is, though. Turkey does look good, though. Well, that's the end of the OK Boomer, OK Zoomer for this week in Perfect Team. When Kidneys is back, we'll get back to a more traditional format. But the other good news is that when we finish OK Boomer, OK Zoomer, we do our giveaway. So if you lost out on everything before, you're going to have another chance right now. So we're going to do a 30,000 perfect point giveaway right now for 3 people. All you need to do is type !ticket in the chat. Do it once. Don't do it more than once. And we'll let that run for a minute or two. And 3 people will walk away with 10,000 perfect points. So if you had a bad internet connection and you couldn't compete in the slogan off, or if you're wait till next year and you could compete, you were just 2 seconds too slow in a number of different cases, maybe this is where you can make it up. And if you did win earlier, you can still win here. So if you got a 5,000 perfect point win earlier, you can still win the 10,000 now. All right. So I will close this down in 10 seconds. And then we will draw our 3 winners. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Giveaway is closed. 3 winners coming at you. First winner, Gen Xer 69. Second winner, DMP1. I believe that's a 2-time winner there. I think he's won this giveaway in the past. And last but certainly not least, T-Rex. That might be a repeat winner as well. So congratulations to our winners tonight. 10,000 perfect points each. The rules are the same. DM me your perfect team username with the applicable capitalization, and I will get you those perfect points as soon as possible. All right, guys. So for this last segment, and I know you guys have been hanging with me. You guys are great. You guys have been hanging a very long time, and I appreciate your patience. And so we decided to do something very light on the back end here, and we're calling it Perfect Team Thanksgiving, which is where we liken the dishes that you and I are all familiar with for Thanksgiving to cards and players within the game. And you'll see where we're going here, and maybe you guys can come up with some of your own good suggestions here. I'm sure that we're leaving plenty of real estate of unidentified perfect matches here, but let's jump in. There's me, there's DRC, and there's Kidneys. Feels bad, man. Feels bad not having you with me here, but we'll do this in your honor. So, our first PT Thanksgiving here is Grandpa. So what is Grandpa at Thanksgiving? He's a voice of authority, the longest voice of authority in many families. He's still the guy that gets it done. Maybe you've got a car problem and he's the one who knows how to fix it so you can avoid the mechanic. Maybe you've just got something that you can't get done around the house. You've got that ceiling fan that he installed 20 years ago. You're still the guy that gets it done. And he's really seen more change than anyone else in this world. But he stays the same. He keeps doing what he's done. Doesn't need the change. So do we know who the grandpa is in Perfect Team? Why is Tris Speaker, of course. Tris Speaker, of course. He's the guy who's been around. He's been doing it a long time. He's still doing it. In a meta build, is he not still your left fielder? Is he not still your left fielder? I know he's my left fielder. But Tris Speaker is grandpa at the table. Next, we've got stuffing. Probably my favorite dish at the Thanksgiving feast. Now, what is stuffing? Stuffing is a mainstay at every Thanksgiving. You can't have Thanksgiving without having stuffing. The two go hand in hand. And sometimes the stuffing is so good. Sometimes it's so good that it takes the shine away from the supposed mains. I've had stuffing that has shamed turkey in the past. I've had stuffing that was a single thing that I was going back for seconds and thirds and fourths. And the thing with stuffing is, yes, it can be great. Yes, it can be so good that it takes the shine away, but it's never bad. Stuffing is never bad. So who is the stuffing and perfect team? It's Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn's on every team that matters. Tony Gwynn is sometimes so good he takes the shine away from the other players like Cobb and Hornsby, other players who weren't, who were toppers. Tony Gwynn wasn't a topper. He was FOTF1. And here he is playing with guys who are not only league toppers, or not only division toppers, but league toppers. Gwynn's the man, and Gwynn is stuffing, and you need him on your team. Next, and of course we have turkey. Of course we have turkey at Perfect Team Thanksgiving. How could we not? So what is turkey? Turkey is at the center of every Perfect Team table, every Thanksgiving table. And you're not really having a serious Thanksgiving. You're not having a serious Thanksgiving. You're not building a serious perfect team unless you've got turkey on it. Although oftentimes, turkey is better in your head than it is in reality. Sometimes turkey doesn't pack that flavor punch that a picture like this, which appears to be just juicing and oozing with flavor, would make you think it's going to be. So what is turkey? Turkey is Maddox. Turkey's on every team. Maddox is on every team. Could be a 99, could be the legend, could be the face of the franchise, but you're not really a serious perfect team if you're punting on having a Maddox. But you know how I said it's sometimes not great. It's sometimes better in your head than it is in reality. And that's really where the gravy comes in. So the gravy makes the turkey better. The gravy can sometimes be unedible or unusable without the gravy. And the gravy makes you feel better. It makes you feel warm inside. It acts as the lubricant of the meal, and bringing it all together, all the accoutrement. And so what's the gravy and perfect team? It's a top defense. And it can take many flavors. Your gravy can be different than my gravy. Your gravy can be better than my gravy. But your gravy might have cards like Ozzie Smith. Might have cards like Ken Griffey. Might have cards like Pop Lloyd, Luke Appling, Andrew Jones. Next, we've got football. So what is perfect team football? Well, let's think about what Thanksgiving football is. Well, it's always a welcome addition. No one's ever mad that they're playing extra football games on Thanksgiving. It can be a great distraction from the other things that aren't going so well. Maybe you've got people at your house you don't want to talk to. Maybe you've got a meal that hasn't lived up to expectation, and it can be a distraction. And oftentimes it ends up being the MVP of the whole day. So football, to me, perfect team football is Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb, who oftentimes will be the MVP of the whole day, the MVP of your whole season. And he's a great distraction when you've got other players driving you crazy with underperformance. When you've got a Willie Mays who can't break the Mendoza line But you look over to Ty Cobb, and he's slashing 330, 410, 525. Great distraction. And always a welcome addition to any team. The moment that you unlock your Ty Cobb is a moment that you take your team to the next level. Ty Cobb is perfect team football. Next, we've got Cranberry. So I'll be honest here. I don't really know where this fits, but I know that a Thanksgiving table is not complete without it. I don't partake in it, but if the spread doesn't have the cranberry, it would stand out. And that's really where Ricky Henderson comes in. Ricky Henderson, oftentimes you don't know exactly how he's going to be part of your feast. Is he going to play VL in left field? Is he going to play in right field? Is he not going to start at all and just be a defensive replacement and a pinch runner? I don't know. But the answer is often that he's got to be on the table. He's got to be there. You don't want to try to go and have a Thanksgiving without a Ricky Henderson on the table. Next, we've got the drunk uncle. So, the drunk uncle's at every Thanksgiving. You know that you're going to eventually get cornered by the drunk uncle. It's totally inescapable. You know that he's a mainstay and part of it, and you can count on it year to year. Count on having to deal with it. And you know that sometimes those interactions with the drunk uncle are the highlight of the day. Sometimes those interactions, sometimes those conversations turn what could otherwise be a dry Thanksgiving, a dry conversation, into something a whole lot more. But other times that conversation with the drunk uncle can be an unmitigated disaster. So we're talking high volatility, high swings of emotion, high pressure, and of course we're talking Rivera and Hoffman here. These guys are your best friend. They are your worst enemy. They will blow 3-run leads against horrible hitters. They will lock down a 1-run lead while going through Cobb, Gwynn, and Triss. You don't know what you're going to get, but you do know that there's going to be 80 plus games a year where you're putting the game into their hands, and what happens from that point is anyone's guess. Firebird 1968 says his vote is DRC for the drunk uncle. Walnut has definitely recommended time and time again that I infuse alcohol drinking into the stream. It's under advisement. Next, we've got the weird Jell-O with the veggies in it. You see carrots in there. You see olives. I don't even know what this is. Is that an apple? Who the heck knows? But what is this? It's interesting enough. And over the course of a day, when it's just sitting there, you have ample opportunity to grab it. It's almost calling to you. And you talk yourself into trying it. Like, why not? Could be good. Look at it. Maybe a slice of that would improve my day. But inevitably, you always regret it. You take that slice, you take that scoop, you put it in your mouth, and you say, oh man, that was a mistake. And sometimes you spend 500,000 perfect points on that mistake. And it's Andy Pettitte. Andy Pettitte is a card that looks better than it performs, that tricks you into thinking that he's going to be a left-handed Maddox, and in reality, he's not deployable in the pen. He's not deployable in other than the most shielded starts as a left-handed pitcher, and he is your Jell-O with veggies infused. Yeah, J Mallet, I know. I know every time I bring this up, you bring up that I won, so I shouldn't complain. But he's the one card that I've taken a bath on from evaluation. Spending $500K on a card, and then a couple weeks later, not being able to extract out of the auction house $100K. As someone who has been very intentional about my auction house game, and very intentional about my spend and trying not to be on the wrong side of those equations, this one stands out to me. Can't put a price on titles. You're not wrong there. Flags do fly forever. All right, and this is the last one. And again, I know I'm leaving a lot of green space out here, so feel free to load up the Discord and the content discussion, or load up my DMs with your PT Thanksgiving. I'm sure that there's a lot of good ideas out there that we didn't even scratch the surface on. But last and most certainly not least, we've got the chef of the meal, the cook. The group of people that take the impossible task of pulling off Thanksgiving and watching the many dishes as they're cooking, oftentimes while multitasking and being a host and being a parent and doing it all with a smile. And they always show up, and they always end up with an admirable performance. It can be your mother, it could be your wife, it could be yourself. It could be any number of folks, but you know who they are, and they're put in a tough spot every single year, and they always come through. And that, to me, is Warren Spahn. As I mentioned already on this stream, Spahn is the one lefty, the one name that you can just throw in your rotation, let him go out there 35 times as a lefty, and put up respectable numbers. And so Warren Spahn is the chef, is the cook. And I want to encourage all you guys to belabor the point and thank the Warren Spahn in your family, the person that made today a special day for you, the collection of persons, if that be. Oftentimes, these are the most incredible ladies and gentlemen in our family, and oftentimes their very hard work, which likely started well before the sun came up this morning, can go unnoticed or unappreciated as the rest of us are enjoying the fruits of their labor and enjoying the food in our bellies and are distracted with conversation and with football. And so I would encourage all of you to thank and to make sure your loved ones know you love them. Reach out to the Warren Spahn in your life and send them some love their way. And that's going to conclude PT Thanksgiving. But one thing that I and Kidneys wanted to say is that we thank you. We've been doing this for 10 short weeks, and we love doing it. We have a great time doing it. We try to have fun. We try to be informative. We try to answer the questions you guys give. But, you guys being here infuse life into this broadcast. There's no way we'd be doing this if there was a handful of people here. So I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate all the support. The subscribers, the followers, the regular viewers, the people that are supporting with bits, the people that are gifting other people subscriptions. I'm just so over the moon appreciative and just can't believe all that has happened in 10 short weeks. And so I thank you from the very bottom of my heart. You guys are awesome. I'm already thinking about, with my energy into going into next year, how that launch is going to look like. And I definitely want you guys to be there every step of the way as we decode what the next version of Perfect Team is going to be like. And I hope that you guys will be along there for that ride. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition and end this show for tonight. So we'll look towards next week. And before we do so, remember that on Sunday I'll be broadcasting the DLL World Series. I don't think I'm going to be in it. It looks like I'm not going to make the playoffs in DLL. So I'll be broadcasting two of my DLL brethren in that league, and it'll be a good time. And it's not just a play-by-play broadcast where someone's there calling highlights. We really try to dive into the numbers and have it be a data-driven broadcast about the matchups, about the players, and really infusing knowledge into it. So if you haven't been a part of any of those, please come check that out on Sunday. It's normally around 4 o'clock Eastern time. Tuesday, I've got the interview with Jesse Roach, the fantasy writer at Baseball Prospectus. Also, he's in the Perfect League right now. Who knows, maybe he'll end up in the Perfect League World Series. I know he made the playoffs last week. And then a week from today, we'll be right back where we are now. And hopefully Kidneys will be right back by my side. I know that I am much stronger with him on my team than I am alone. So I'm hopeful that next week we'll get right back to the groove that we were in and string together our next 10 episodes. So thanks again, everyone, for showing up. And we'll see you next time.